attending the webinar today with dyslexia. We're really excited to have two special guests. Bethany Kowalczyk is a teacher that did our original webinars here in Montana, and I know, Jen, that you're one of the attending the webinar today with dyslexia. We're really attending the webinar today with dyslexia. We're really excited to have two special guests. Bethany Kowalczyk is a teacher that did our original webinars here in Montana, and I know, Jen, that you're one of the first people to join us. Is Jennifer Arneson, of course, the special education director for Colstrip, and I think we have some pretty exciting information to share with everybody today, and it's kind of laid back. And anything that you have, please ask questions as we go. And there's no real sales pitch today. At the end, if you'd like to know more information, just reach out. But we are proud that we were recently awarded the tech finalist for Education Technology Award, and so that's pretty exciting for Neuralign. And we work a lot with neurodivergent children for reading comprehension and numeracy that you'll hear all about today. So I'd just like to yield the floor to Bethany, and again, welcome everybody for joining us today.
Yes, I'll echo that welcome from Paul. Thank you for giving of your morning. I come to you from the St. Louis area, so nice to meet all of you in the Montana area. I'm going to start today just real briefly letting you know how I entered into working with Neuralign, not working for, but working with it, both as a parent and now as a teacher. And I'll give you a brief introduction, kind of overview of what the program is. Then we'll have some questions specifically for Jennifer so she can lay out what her experience has been and the results she's getting in the pilot that she has operated this past semester. And then also at the end, if folks are interested, we'll have more videos of the program so you can see a little bit more what it looks like for a student who would be sitting at the computer and operating it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you. All right. All right, so more and more we see students who are plateauing in their reading. Statistics are off the charts in terms of struggling readers right now, and that's for a variety of reasons. But I was a parent of one of those, and it surprised me to pieces. I picked up reading early on. I didn't find it to be a mystery as a young student. But when my son did kindergarten and first grade, I was stymied and I didn't know exactly what to do. I've generally been an upper level teacher, not a lower level teacher. So when it comes to teaching reading, this was intimidating. This is my little guy, Bo. He's currently going into fourth grade, but kindergarten, first grade, he was not reading, spelling, calculating. He just was stuck. And this was despite really solid phonics-based instruction. He had very small classroom sizes, 16. His teachers had an excellent pulse on everything he was doing and everything he wasn't able to do. We tried targeted intervention, we tried tutoring, and he just wasn't making the connection. So I suspected dyslexia, had him assessed, and sure enough, that was indeed the culprit. But my concern was, I don't want a lifelong sentence of struggle for him. Some amount of struggle is good, but having taught in the upper levels, I see 10th and 11th graders who just think they're just dumb. They're like, oh, I'm just dumb. I can't do much in school. And it had nothing to do with their intellectual aptitude. It has everything to do with the wiring of their brain. So as I took a deep dive into the true makeup of dyslexia, I came upon this graphic that helps to illustrate how a brain that's struggling to read is doing so because it's not using the parts of the brain that are optimal for reading. This myth that one hemisphere is good for math, one is good for reading or creativity is not actually true. It requires both hemispheres firing together. Excuse me, in order for a student to be able to receive instruction in our written language, and then to also be able to recall that instruction when they recognize words and are looking to sound out new words that they haven't seen before. So a typical brain is going to use those key parts in the left hemisphere for that process, a dyslexic brain, you can see, is trying to make use of other parts of the brain, and it's just not optimal. This is why dyslexic students become really great at memorizing. That's because that's all they've got. They can memorize from these two key parts of the brain, but they're not learning in the true natural form that our brains are designed for. So I knew then that what I was looking for as a solution was something that would rewire the brain. And as educators, we're taught about neuroplasticity and the malleability of the brain, even into our older age. So I went looking for something very specific that would do this task. So I wanted to address the root cause for my son so that he could properly store and retrieve his instruction. I didn't want him having to memorize for the next 10 years of his educational process. I didn't want a Band-Aid approach that required reteaching and repetition. The poor boy spent 7 hours in school already. He didn't want to come home and have tutoring for another hour or so. And I was mindful that I needed to minimize my burden and lift. I am a teacher. I know how to plan. I know how to differentiate. However, the last thing I needed was more of that after the end of a long day. And so ultimately, our plan was to eliminate the need for long-term accommodation. We're at a very small school that does not have its own special education program or instructors. As teachers, we learn to do a lot of the interventions on our own. And I needed to rebuild his confidence. Already in first grade, he's saying, "I'm a dummy. No one thinks I can do anything well." And that broke my heart. He still had so many years to go in his educational process. So I needed results in 2 months. At the end of first grade, he was evaluated by the second grade teacher, and it was deemed that he was not ready. But they also didn't know any other interventions to try if he repeated first grade. So we were really in a pickle. And so I knew what I was looking for, and I had 2 months to make it happen. Which was a bit of a tall order. And I stumbled upon NeuralignUS. And what amazed me about it was that it worked with the root cause. It's rewiring the neural pathways with game-based cognitive therapy to optimize the hemispheres firing together. And it does so in 40 hours of automated intervention. So for me, I wasn't needing to go back to school to learn a new reading system. I wasn't needing to seek out a tutor who was already certified and qualified and equipped with all of the materials. It was all right here in this program. And in addition to working with reading, it strengthened his attention and working memory, all of those skills which are essential for reading to happen. If a student can't attend to what they're reading or remember what they read at the beginning of the passage, it doesn't matter if they're decoding the words. And so NeuralignUS seemed like a viable option to me because it's going to integrate the auditory, visual, and the motor systems, everything that's needed to rewire the brain for optimal learning. At the end of our program time, Bo became one of the 99% of users who advanced 2 or more reading grade levels in the 40 hours. And the reason it worked is because it addressed the root cause. It rewired his brain for reading. It didn't just teach around the problem. And so at the end of that summer, believe it or not, he was reevaluated for second grade. He was reading on grade level. Over the year, he caught up with his spelling and was on track with his peers. He was able to also navigate math problems for the first time because his numbers were very obscure to him. And he was thriving because his storage and retrieval systems were finally optimized to receive instruction. So sometimes you're working overtime and you're wondering why week to week a student's not retaining the vowel blends or the consonant blends that you worked on so hard the week before or weeks before. It's because the brain is not optimized to receive that. And NeuralignUS provided that breakthrough to allow him to store and retrieve the instruction he was receiving. And though it sounds too good to be true, right? I'm saying in 2 months' time, my son went from not being able to complete first grade work to being ready for second grade. But it's because it's science-backed. It's using game-based technology. He was engaged and excited about it, but it uses targeted split-second interface that syncs up these three systems here so that his brain can receive instruction. And importantly, it's designed by dyslexics who know dyslexics and understand the malleability of the brain. And so again, science-backed, it received level 1 certification from the ESSA certification process for its effectiveness as an intervention. And just in general, so the program, I transitioned from being a parent who used it to a teacher who really needed to see this for my students. And so broad scale, Neuralign has 3 phases. The first part, the cognitive therapy, is where the rewiring happens. This is about 15 hours of game-based work. The students just think they're playing fun video games. And then it moves to phase 2 and 3, where then the student with this rewired brain is now strengthening their reading skills. So over the course of 15 weeks, phases 2 and 3 run concurrently. So it's not 3 independent phases. Phase 1, the cognitive therapy, can be done in a half-hour or 1-hour increments 3 times a week. For the youngest students, I highly recommend a half-hour. If you have upper school students, maybe high school students, even adults can use this. An hour is more appropriate for them. But our little guys who are struggling to read, they oftentimes maybe also have some ADHD or ADD going on as well. And so a half hour is about the max they can sit, even though it is game-based. So 3 times a week. And this is where that rewiring of the auditory and visual processing and the working memory and executive function are all taking place. Each of the games is going to highlight at least 4 or 5 of these particular targets. So a lot of these you'll recognize as just key things that students need in order to be able to read. But these things need to be happening simultaneously. And the way the program is built, it ensures that 4 to 5 of these, if not 8 of them, are embedded in each of the modules the students are engaging with. This is just a quick snapshot of what some of those games look like. You'll see they're colorful. You'll notice right off the bat, the screen is busy. This really helps students develop their visual closure, which is their ability to build an imprint of their mind of what the word looks like. So down here in this middle one in the bottom, you see the word tan, but the word A is slightly blurred out. This is helping the student to build that imprint of what is that word behind it. So they're building fluency and they're able to get beyond just their decoding process. And then briefly, phase 2 is speed reading. This looks a lot like a reading record if you use those. Phase 1 is 3 times a week. Phase 2 and 3 concurrently, 5 times a week for about 10 to 15 minutes. The speed reading is 1 minute. They're given a passage to read 5 times throughout the week. They have a 1-minute timer. When they're finished reading, they click the last word they read, and that tracks their progress. I do sit with students on this one to make sure that they are reading the words correctly or they're decoding any new words that are being introduced to them. But this is an example of what that might look like. This is a student who's level 1. We have junior level through level 4. This student is being given a passage at the 210 to 400 Lexile level. I love these Lexile indicators. It just gives me a good guide as to where my student is. If a student is just starting out, the passages are very simple. They're consonant, vowel, consonant words. They're following the same short vowel sound. They're very short sentences, but it's fascinating to watch a student then bump up to a passage like this, which stretches their abilities. So phase 1, cognitive therapy. Phase 2, the speed reading, which is 1 minute. And then phase 3 is a mixture of reading exercises. So this will be 10 to 15 minutes, again, 5 times a week. I usually do this right after the speed reading with students. In addition to building students' reading comprehension skills, there are a variety of games built in to build their working memory and to build their executive function as well. So here would be an example of a reading comprehension passage based on the Lexile level and the fact that this student has 20 questions. I'm going to guess they're sitting at level 3 or 4. This would definitely be an older student. Younger students will have shorter passages, shorter sentences, and they might only have 4 or 5 questions. So over time, what I love about the program is it responds to their abilities. As they grow, or if they are older students, it's automatically going to generate the passages and the number of questions that is appropriate for them. And again, it provides a Lexile measure, which is super helpful for our tracking. But in addition to reading comprehension, students are working on their basic memory skills. So if you remember, flipping over the cards and trying to, find a match, that's what we have in the upper left. In the upper right, the color hopper is very much like the game of Simon, where the buttons will activate in a given sequence, and students have to remember that order. And then over here in the bottom left, they're working on some of their spatial reasoning. They have to get the koala over to his little bamboo shoot, but they have to really visualize what that might look like, that pathway for that koala. And then this is another fun little game here where students have to unjumble their words, if you will. So recapping this, the first phase is cognitive therapy, rewiring, getting the left and the right hemisphere to work together optimally. And then phase 2, speed reading to build their fluency. And then phase 3, which is going to be building their comprehension and their memory and some further executive function, if you will. And I want to pause and hand this over then to Jen, so she can share her experience as she's implemented it this summer. I have my experiences here in St. Louis with my son and then with my own students, but it's going to be really helpful if she can explain how she's using it in a rural district very similar to many of yours. So Jennifer, I'll hand it over to you, and at various points, I'll just pop in with some questions if that's all right.
That works for me. Thank you, Bethany.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Jennifer Arneson. I'm the special ed director at Colster Public Schools. I heard Bethany present with Paul earlier this spring, and I was like, is it really too good to be true? And I was like, well, if Bethany had success, let's try it with a few kids. So in Colstrip, we chose 5 lines to participate in the NeuralignUS program. I asked our Title I teacher, who do you think would like our highest needs kids that are probably going to be referred to special ed because we keep trying something and they're not making much progress. So we ended up with, out of the 5 kids, one of the kids was participating in the Barton program. If you're not familiar with the Barton program, it is an intervention that you can use for students who you suspect have dyslexia. You can do it in a group setting. However, every kid has to be present for you to teach a lesson and move on. So as we know, attendance for most of our kids is not the greatest. So we usually teach that one-on-one. And there's 10 books in that program. And we've just had a few kids that have finished. One kid actually finished the Barton program and has been doing it for years. And then we had one student who actually was just qualified as having dyslexia. I literally heard about Paul's webinar, and then the same week, the parent was like, hey, my kid has dyslexia. What can we do? So we for sure put those 2 students on, and then we had a few other kids who were struggling. We saw such great success that we plan to buy 10 seats for Pine Butte Elementary School just for the Title I program, because there are some kids we think that would benefit from that cognitive therapy to help with rewiring their brain. Maybe they're struggling with phonemic awareness. They can't remember directions, 2-step directions. So really some kids that could use a little bit more intervention than we're able to provide. And then we're doing 10 seats for the special ed department at Pine Butte because we have a few kids that we keep trying interventions with and something's just not clicking there. And then we have a student at the high school level who has done the Barton program and they're not seeing success. They've kind of plateaued as well. How we run the program for Neuralign is our Title I teacher polls the students, and 2 days a week due to the schedules, she was able to poll all 5 kids at the same time. And so they would just come to her classroom and then she would have them on a Chromebook and then they had headphones so they could listen to it. And then when they did the speed reading passages, she would have them take off their headphones and read to her. And that way she could make sure that they weren't just trying to get a high score. Because one kid clicked like the first week and was like, I read 100 words, look at me go. So we know how that goes with some of our kids. They want to see improvement and get higher scores each time. So they literally have a Chromebook, mouse, so that way they can move it instead of using their finger for eye-hand coordination. And then 30 minutes. We did it 5 days a week because, as we know, students are gone. And if you want the cognitive therapy to work, you shouldn't miss more than 4 days between sessions. So, of course, we have like Easter break, field day, field trips. If you want to move to the next slide, Bethany, we actually are asking our parents to complete it over the summer for a few of our kids because we just run out of time with them being gone. I wanted to share a success, especially in the reading. So this is the map growth from fall to spring for 4 of the kids. The 5th kid, the kid moved into our district and I don't have a fall map score on that student. So if you look at their growth, and this is looking at the RIT score from the fall to the spring. So student 1 grew 20 points in year 1, 20 or 18 points in year 2, and then 20 points in year 3. If you look through that data, we're seeing that almost all of the kids had their highest growth or second highest growth using Neuralign in all the years. And then the student number 5 is the one that's just a growth from winter to spring because he's missing a fall score. And I want to compare something that's comparable with it. Also, a couple of the kids were in the same classroom, and their teacher, who came in January, because we had a teacher go on maternity leave, she said when she first started in the teaching the class, 2 of the students never volunteered to read, and then by May, those students were raising their hand and volunteering to read in the classroom. So it's giving the kids confidence to do well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent. That's excellent. A question I have is when students sat down and were using the program, how did they seem to respond to it? What was their experience like?
So the kids enjoyed it a lot. Actually, it's interesting because I get a report. You can ask to get a report every day. So I see when the kids are working on it. And I do like that part because I'm not housed at the elementary school. I'm housed in a different building in our district. So I can see that the kids are working on and doing the assignment that's assigned. And even at home, not ideal because we know some parents are very competitive and maybe parents want to do it themselves, but we see such value in the program that we're having them do it at home. And having the kids, like, they're excited to come. It's not something where they're like, oh, I have to go with Mrs. So-and-so again today. They're excited. They bring their Chromebooks and they're ready to do the program. We do have a kid who struggles with staying awake. So we've just watched the data and our title teacher was like, okay, I need to sit by that kid because they do need a little bit more prompting. So it's not just put the kid on and you turn away and walk away because we know they're children. Sometimes they get distracted by other things on the internet and stuff like that. But our Title I teacher said it was easy to run, manage, and the kid, she didn't have the kids struggle with coming to see her to do it or even complaining or whining about it.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah. And I will mention that in the portal, you do have the option to provide home access. So over breaks and things like that, that's what's so great is it doesn't have to be an interrupted service. They can access it from home. You had mentioned Barton, and I'm sure you've used other interventions as well. How is NeuralignUS different from other interventions that your district has tried to implement?
So NeuralignUS does that cognitive therapy, because if we learn about dyslexia and even our brain and what it's wired for, our brains are wired for pictures and faces, not letters and numbers, which is what we expect kids to do when they enter school. So it's actually that busyness of the Title I teacher was like, oh my goodness, that's so busy. But then understanding that you have to differentiate and pick out what's important, even when you're reading and skimming and scanning as you get older. You don't look at everything necessarily on a page to find what's important, or when you're looking at a graph. So it does seem silly that it's so busy, but understanding behind it and that cognitive piece is what's missing for a lot of us with the interventions.
Yeah. How is also preparing someone to facilitate this intervention? How is that different than, say, what facilitators needed to do in order to operate or facilitate Barton or something like that?
So when we signed up for the program, there are short videos to watch, and it's a tutorial that you can go back at any time and look at. So that was nice. Like, I was able to sit down and do all the training, I think, in an hour and a half. I don't listen to stuff on one speed, so I might have sped it up to 1.5. And then even our Title I teacher was able to do that. And then she was gone for a couple of weeks, and the person that stepped in her place was also able to do the training quickly. Whereas the Barton program is 3 to 4 hours of training. This is one time to do the training, and it's maybe 2 hours at the most. And I like that I can go back, and it's easy access and short clips. So I can go back and just look, oh, how do I add that kid to the class? I don't have to like go back and like, oh, guess where was it at? It's all lined out there for training.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's what I found was fantastic as well. I appreciated and it's right there. I don't necessarily have to have a consult or a consultant come out and set me up. Yeah, it made it easy to implement for us as well. How do you see this impacting your rural school community?
I am hoping that we don't have all of the students being referred for special ed, because it seems like if the kids are struggling to read, eventually Title works with them, and then they're a special ed referral, and that requires me to have lots of staff, as we all know. And then what are we looking at? So I'm hoping that if we can provide this as an intervention, that those kids won't have to become a special ed student receiving special ed services, and then eventually hopefully have the confidence and won't even need Title help. If you go to my next slide, Bethany, it shows the math data as well, since I know we're short on time, unless people are willing to stay longer. So here's our math data as well. And I did the same thing. So student 1 in reading is also student 1 in math. So there is that correlation between the students. So besides the student who's number 5, all of the students saw some growth with it, and 2 of the kids actually had their highest growth after using NeuralignUS in math. Paul had asked me what the data was, and I hadn't looked at it until just yesterday to see where the students were at. But there's been good growth with that as well. And then there's just the note, the students doing it at home.
Absolutely. That's excellent. That's excellent. One of the things that I noticed with Bo was, in addition to struggling to read, he was struggling with numeracy. He could tell me what the number 5 was, but he didn't understand what it meant. He could count 5 dots on a picture, but when the number 5 was written on the board, he couldn't add to it. He couldn't subtract from it. He truly didn't understand what it was. And so through NeuralignUS, we also saw that it unlocked that for him as well. So it doesn't surprise me that you're also seeing math gains. It all just seems to be connected.
Does anyone from the audience have questions about what we did with Neuralign? I know I had a few people reach out to me and ask me, was it really as good as it seems? Because I know so often it's sales pitches that people throw at us and are like, well, here's the success. And really, Colstrip has seen a lot, and we're not even done with the program. So I'd be interested to see what is our data for next year following these students on as well.
Valerie, how about you folks in terms of what you're looking at, and does it seem of interest? And again, it was never a sales pitch from us. I can cover all that later, but certainly I'd be interested in your experience, or Nicole, maybe your experience in terms of what you folks are doing right now. I yield back.
So thanks, Paul. I was actually just getting ready to type a message in the chat saying I need to jump off for another meeting, but I am curious, Paul, if this is something that our district was interested in getting and utilizing it. How do we go about? Do we just contact you?
Yeah, you just contact me. I'll set something up special for you, show you a few more of the games, but it's really easy. And the nice thing is through the Montana Cooperative Service, we have special pricing. And it's allocated. We can grandfather that into next year and beyond. So I'd be happy to share that with anyone, but it's pretty attractive because it's one price and everything's solved, right? So, and there's no hidden costs. I think there's another slide, Bethany. But yeah, for sure, Valerie, I appreciate you.
And then I just wanted to make sure, like, how young of a student have you started this with in districts?
So I was going to say Colstrip actually, our students were mostly second and third graders. We did have a kindergartner that we used the program with. And that was the student that struggled the most with it. Just the attention. That was our student who was tired a lot. That was also our happy clicker.
Makes sense.
But I was going to say, we were like, we want to try it with this kid. And it has made a difference. The kid went from speed reading on day 1. The student was reading 4 words is all the kid read. And then the kid is now reading 19 words in a minute, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you are struggling so much, 19 words is success. And the kid hadn't made hardly any success in title this year. I don't know what the data was before, but that's what I looked at, was the kid went from 4 words in a minute to 19.
I've had success with multiple first graders, but Neuralign is actually slated for 5 years old, and I say to 105. They actually have success with an adult who was working through some cerebral palsy and had great success with that. So because we're talking about the malleability of the brain, and research shows that is in effect until the day we take our last breath. We can continue to retrain our neural pathways. So very successful. And Jennifer, I think you were working with a high school student as well. Is that correct?
We didn't use it this year with a high school student. That is our plan for next year, 26-27 school year. And I did answer the question about high school kids. So I don't have any firsthand experience. I think, though, that our high school student will enjoy the program and experience success, because our high school student is a student who can read a passage, but they substitute, like instead of saying house, they'll say home. Very close to the same thing, doesn't change the meaning, but it's not the printed word. And with the Barton program, eventually you read words down a page, and that student can't read words in isolation, but if you did it 3 times, the student had it memorized. So that's why I'm like, okay, hey, let's try Neuralign with the student, because I want the student to have the success to be able to go to college and not struggle as much as they are currently.
And Josh, that was your question, right, about high school students?
Josh, go ahead.
Yes, that was my question.
We have students in high school and other districts, not in Montana, that were reading at grade 2 and grade 3 level, which is kind of shocking, but with great success now. So I go back to the team. I think someone else has a question. Yes.
Yes, Josh, I just saw your question. So Neuralign, on their website, you'll note that it's slated for students with dyslexia, ADHD, autism. They even have, like I said, success with cerebral palsy. I have a student who could read but his ability to sit still was greatly impaired. I mean, we're thinking like find a seatbelt for the child. He really needed some external help in order to sit still. And his family and his teacher are seeing marked improvement in his executive function and in his ability to be in command of his own body. So yes, there are. So if you have a student who maybe they're not struggling with reading, but they are dealing with ADHD, due to the nature of the neuroscience behind the program, it is effective for that as well. So that was a good targeted question. And I do want to pull just this last slide. I know we are running over a little bit, but that question, is it too good to be true? As a mom, I wasn't satisfied that my son needed to struggle the rest of his life through school. I'm not saying he needed to be a brainiac and everything come easy, because there is benefit to some struggle. But when he was already at first grade, labeling himself a dummy, I just wasn't content with that. And so I too had this question, is this too good to be true? But we took a leap, we jumped in, and we couldn't speak more highly about what it did for my son. I now, I can't type a text without him over my shoulder and he's in my business. And I'm reminded that that is a blessing. My son can read. What did he read? He read the word taxidermy. We were watching some show and there was a building that's a taxidermy, and here he's going into 4th grade, and I was like, oh Lord, that's such a blessing. Thank you. So it is indeed science-based, but it's different from other programs in that it's going to solve the issue. It's not going to continue to be, it's not going to, the student is not going to continue to need all of the special education services that would typically be necessary. So yeah, it's pretty powerful.
So just to your time, everybody, and certainly I want to thank. One last call for questions. I know James or Darren or Nola, Stephanie, if you have any questions at all, be happy to answer them. Even something like, as I said, really practical. How does it work, or what, but we've heard a lot today, and I just want to thank Jennifer for joining us, and obviously Bethany is a teacher. I've used this for a long time, but the results in Montana are very encouraging. I think it's a great fit. As Jennifer was explaining to me, you have to drive often 2 hours to anywhere, and this helps a lot of those interventions that they can be done in school with minimal lift. And we're already seeing encouraging data. So Jennifer, any other words or wisdom for us today as we close?
I was going to say, please reach out if you guys have questions regarding it or want to know about it, because I'm willing to help you and answer questions. I know sometimes it's hard on asking questions on a big group of it, and really is, am I really telling the truth? But it is something that's made a difference in our district, and so we plan to continue using it. So thank you for your time, Paul, and I'm thankful that Bethany shared her story with me so that I could try out the program in our district.
So thank you very much, everybody. And I really appreciate you taking your time, and hopefully you can learn a little bit more about Neuralign because we have a lot of children to help in Montana. Thank you very much and have a great day.